Hi everyone, special class for us today with the start of our new area of study, operations management, but also with the release on Friday of the updated 2020 study design for business management and for all other subjects as well. So I want to spend a little bit of this morning, today's lesson, just going through making sure that you understand what the changes are for business management, and that you can then have a bit of time also to go away and have a look at how other study designs have changed and subjects that you're doing this year, and how they're going to impact on your studies going forward. So all of your studies, if you go to the VCAR website and the study design website, they will have in the top right hand corner a little red box with accreditation period adjusted study design, which is for 2020 only. So they've gone through and they've made changes to each of the study designs as a result of the remote learning and difficulties that some students are having in completing the course, and have produced now an adjusted study design for everybody. So this is what the business management one looks like. There's the link directly if you want to go to the business management study design and get a copy of it now. There is also one attached to this lesson in the files underneath the notes, underneath access to this particular presentation. Just click on that and you'll get access to the PDF copy of the business management study design for yourself to have a look through. So let's go through a few things that have happened. Summary of changes. A normal study design, you should be aware of this by now. If we have a look at the Unit 3, there is Unit 3 content, normally made up of 100 marks, or it is in business management anyway, and that has a 0.5 weighting of school coursework. So I'll tell you what that means in a minute. Unit 4 content also has 100 marks, and it has a 0.5 weighting of school coursework. The school coursework itself makes up 50% of your mark at the end of the year, contributes 50% to your end of year study score, and the end of year exam contributes the other 50%. So 50 and 50 is 100. The 0.5 weighting of the coursework between Unit 3 and Unit 4 means that 0.5 of 50% is 25%. So that's essentially the contribution of Unit 3 towards the end of year study score, and 25% of Unit 4 also goes towards your study score at the end of year. So that's how a normal study design would work before the changes that have been put in place by VCAR in the last 24 hours. So let's now get into the changes, have a look at how things have been affected. So the 2020 study design, we have Unit 3 content. There has been no change to that whatsoever. So 100 marks, but now it has a 0.6 weighting of school coursework, so 30% overall. Unit 4 content has been modified, and you will see that on the next slides, what's happened there. It now has become 80 marks and has a 0.4 weighting of school coursework, so 20% overall. So there's been a higher weighting towards Business Management Unit 3 and a lower rating to Unit 4. So the school coursework still 50%, and all students still to complete all SACs under the same conditions. Conditions can differ from one SAC to the next, obviously, as we've seen during this remote learning. We've done one last week remotely, so a little bit different to the one we did before we went on remote learning. Authentication declaration needs to be done for remote SACs. So you submitting a remote SAC, you are declaring that the work that you're submitting is your own. That's part of the VCAR requirements for remote SACs, or any SACs really. And the end of year exam is still worth 50%. So 50% for coursework, 50% for end of year exam, no change there. Just the weighting has changed slightly with a weighting more heavily towards Unit 3 content than there is for Unit 4 content. And here it is actually in the study design, the screen capture there for Unit 3 and 4. We've got Unit 3 school assessed coursework. You can see that VCAR have crossed out the 25s for Unit 3 and for Unit 4, and they've put in the 30 for Unit 3 and the 20 for Unit 4. to go with the end of year exam of 50%. So to keep the total there at 100. So that's actually in the study design, and you can see that as you go through and look at the study design yourself. So let's have a look at the content changes specifically. So we're looking at Unit 3. Content changes, there are none. So it makes it pretty straightforward. So what we've done to date will all stand. All students complete the Outcome 1 SAC, which is 20 marks, which we all did at school. The Outcome 2A SAC of 20 marks, which 75% of the cohort did at school. And then we've got Outcome 2B SAC, 20 marks. We can use the one that we did remotely in the last few days. That's fine. Everybody did that under the same conditions. And then we've got Outcome 3 SAC, 40 marks, which we've still got to do. We'll have to see what the decisions are in relation to remote learning over the next couple of weeks as to how we go about doing that SAC, whether we do one remotely or split it in two for two remotely, or whether we do a SAC, we're all back at school, and we do a SAC at school. What is missing there is that for Outcome 2A, the 25% of the cohort who didn't do that will be required to do a SAC at some stage to catch that up, and it will have to be done under the same conditions that the 75% of the cohort sat, just for fairness sake. So we'll address that as we go through down the track. So yeah, so each student completes each SAC under the same conditions for equality, so we can compare apples with apples when we're looking at your ranking. So let's look at the changes in Unit 4. This is where really the study design has changed significantly. So again, you've got a screen capture there of the Unit 4 transforming a business directly out of the study design. In the Unit 4 blurb at the start, you can see they've added in the yellow box there, it says factors that influence the success of change. That's been added in. So you need to consider factors that influence the success of change. Previously, you need to consider a variety of strategies to manage change in the most efficient and effective way to improve business performance. That has been completely removed and made a more general statement put in there. Then under Area Study 1, review performance, the need for change. It's not actually under the outcome, it's under the general overview at the start. They've removed students investigate the way a business can search for new business opportunities as a source of future business growth. So that's been taken out as well. So it's sort of limited the scope for Area Study 1 without actually influencing their outcome. So what that means is what they have done though, by just removing those out of the general blurbs for Unit 4 in Area Study 1, they haven't actually touched the key knowledge points. So the key knowledge points remain the same. It's just they have become a little bit more general in nature for those key knowledge points. So the changes for Area Study 1, they're in Unit 4. Essentially, there are none. So that Unit 4 Area Study 1 module will remain the same and will be tackled the same. Now we get down to the big part, Unit 4, Area Study 2, Implementing Change. So this is the last part of Unit 4. There's only 2 areas of study. So this part, Implementing Change, there were 8 key knowledge points. They've removed 5. So it is pretty significant what they've done in Area Study 2. So the principles of Cengage learning organisation has been completely omitted. Strategies to seek new business opportunities have been omitted. Low risk strategies dealing with employees, employee resistance has been removed. High risk strategies dealing with employee resistance has been removed, and the effect of change on stakeholders has been removed. So that's a pretty big chunk of Unit 4 Area Study 2 that's gone. And you'll see in a minute that that affects how the overall Area Study 4 or Unit 4 and how it contributes to the overall study score has been affected. But yeah, so 5 of the 8 study design points have gone. And here we go. So here's the final part from the study design and how it's been affected. So this is Unit 4, the contribution to final assessment for school assessed coursework for Unit 4. we can see there it now contributes 20% to the final study score as opposed to the 25 that it was previously. So as I said before, Unit 3 goes up to 30%, Unit 4 comes down to 20%, and within the Unit 4 we have Outcome 1 and Outcome 2. Outcome 1 stays the same, 50 marks out of 50 marks allocated. Unit 2 has dropped from 50 marks to 30 marks. So the total marks allocated for Unit 4, according to this study design now, is 80, not 100. So Unit 2 has significantly reduced in its contribution to um, Unit 4 into the overall study score. So this is where you just need to be aware, if you're working ahead and you're starting to look at some of this content, just make sure that you're not covering some of the content which actually has been removed from the course. You should also be aware too that now it's been removed, if it's no longer a key knowledge point, then VCAR cannot create an exam condition, an exam question for it in the exam at the end of the year. So there is no point looking at that content whatsoever in Edrolo or in the textbooks, or and we will adjust our lecture notes accordingly to make sure that you're not being delivered content which is not going to appear on the exam at the end of the year. So I hope that clarifies everything. If you have any questions, please come and talk to myself or Mr. McAllister during the lessons. Obviously, we'll be in Google Chat as we always are. So come and chat to us. Make sure you look at your study design. Make sure you look at the study designs for all of your subjects, and question your teachers if you aren't sure as to how things are going to work. And so with that, I think it's best that today there's not any content that we're going to start with today. The best thing is to get your head around the changes to operations management and read all of your study design changes. Once you've done all that, take a look at the summary notes attached to this lesson. So there's summary notes there which cover the whole outcome. Mr. McAllister has been able to put something together for those that are a great resource as well. Make sure you watch the first Ed Rollo lesson, get in front in your lessons. Other than that, come and have a chat if you need to. And if we don't see you, we'll catch up with you in the following lesson. All the best, and I hope this now provides you clarification for the rest of the year. It certainly does as to how we're going to assess, and everything's now heading towards final exams at the end of the year and a GAT. And that SACs all count, and the SACs are going to be as normal, and your coursework that you do is going to count towards the end of your exam, which is a good relief as well. So I'm glad that it's been cleared up for everybody. Again, if there's anything that you want to have cleared up further, please come and see me. All the best.